I've done this once before, but it was quite old and there were different structures. So I'll explain all that in the video. Anyway, let me set this up. Hello everybody and welcome to a video trying to help and explain to people how to best theorycraft a build. So this is a really interesting part, and I think it's one of the most enjoyable parts of this game when you truly understand all of the combat structures and all of that. And I also think it's an area where a lot of customization can be made that people often don't think about. So I'm going to explain this. I have made this video before. However, there's a lot of sets and a lot of different concepts that have been made by players that are no longer, are now present that were not in the past. So there's a lot of ways that you can piece sets around your gear to open up some bonus set spots. And I kind of want to explain that in a bit more detail. It was a popular demanded video before, so I thought it'd be worthwhile doing. Anyway, here we go. So, first things first, when you are making a build, you've got a few things to decide on. Your food, your gear, your glyphs, your CP, and your skills. Those are the big five. I would always start, without fail, with your sets. And you need to base those around your playstyle. So, first thing before anything else when you're making that build is think, what playstyle am I happy to play? If you don't want to play melee, for example, you're obviously not going to play melee skills, melee sets, etc. If you're not going to play range, you're not going to play sets that are casting from range. That also cuts down your mass picks. There is a lot of sets in this game, and you want to try and narrow it down. Number two, I always suggest to build for survivability, then sustain, and then damage. The reason you want to go that way is if you can't survive, what's the point in the resources and the damage? Boom, that's gone. This is obviously for sort of 1BXy build. If you are interested in a gank, then that's pretty much all you need, the damage. But survivability, number one, build into survivability. Number two, once you've got enough survivability, not a ridiculous amount, get some regen. And then once you've got a lot of regen and a lot of survivability, think to yourself, what of this can I sacrifice to amp up the damage? Can I change glyphs? Can I change one of these sets? How can I add damage to this build? And remember, there are also skills that will do that I can discuss in a sec. Okay, so we've talked about the general ideas. How are we going to go around that? Rule of thumb, you are almost always either going to run a sustain set and a damage set, or 2 damage sets and something on your glyph to sustain. So probably recovery, reduce cost, or that equivalent. Those are your general setups. So that should help you narrow down the sort of ways you want to go. If there's sets that particularly interest you, you want to work around those. Now note that I say sustain sets, not survivability sets. I'm kind of counting those together. It depends a bit on the set. So let's take an example of Wizard's Riposte Day, which we have here, that has magical regen on it. So we're counting that as more of a sustain set than anything else, since it's also going to save ourselves resources from having to defend less. Number two, so we've started getting our sets together. We need to decide what sets best suit that role. So instantly you can avoid about 50% of sets. Most of them suck. You've narrowed down your set pool. How are you going to piece them together? I would always advise, wherever possible in the current patch, assuming you're a vet, to try and open up the monster slot, because it's very powerful to have 2 monster slot. If you only have 1, it's still pretty good to have. It's not perfect, but it's, it's still good. I would always suggest trying to build that first. Aim for the set on the monster set first. I'm going to quickly mute this moron. We're going to ban him on stream later, because that's super annoying. You've got that going, and then you want to look how you can piece those together. So there's a few combos we could do this. The first is what I call a generic setup. 2 monster set, 5 pieces of armor, 3 pieces of jewelry, and either a 1-hand shield or a 1-piece. Examples, 2 Bloodspawn, 5 Bone Pirate, 3 Agility, Maelstrom 1-hand shield or a Master Bow, and a Maelstrom or Asylum 2-hander. It's an example. Anything like that can work. It's really going to depend on you at that point, how you do that, what piece you go. Option number 2, what I call the front bar, back bar. So this is going to be most appropriate if you are running with a 2-piece monster set and 2 staffs or a bow and a 2-hander, that sort of thing, but don't want things like Master or Asylum. So you're going to go 2-piece monster set, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4 armor, including jewelry, and 1 on the front bar. and then 5 on the back bar. So you want to look at sets that are working on both bars. For instance, Wizard of Apostate can proc on both bars, Lich can proc on both bars. Sometimes sets like Seducer, where you're reducing cost, can work on both bars. You've got Alchemists, Brigands can be front barred. You get the point. There's a lot of sets that do that, and that's just going to open up a few more stats for you. The next one, which is quite a new concept, is a front bar, back bar push. So what a front bar, back bar push is 2 monster set, 5 pieces. So we're going to assume the last 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our last 2 pieces are going on the back bar. We've got 3 pieces of armor on the front bar. So let's imagine we're on my front bar right now. I'm going to give you an example. I've got the gear out ready. And we're going to slot with this on the front. I don't really want to bind that. This on the front. Grab 2 shields. This on the front. Obviously, these sets are not mattering right now. And this on the front. So we've got this 1-hand shield setup, 1-hand shield setup. We can run with 2 monster set, 5 pieces like my DK of Blurring Spellweave, for instance, on the back bar, where the 4 piece is something you don't need on your front bar. For instance, you may have extra health. You may not need a 4 piece of health. You may not need crit. It's not necessarily that important. You might back bar that. That sort of concept. And then what that opens is a 2 piece on your front bar, which will almost always be willpower, or perhaps in Stamina's case, the 1-hand shield, Maelstrom, Asylum, that sort of things. The final way to do a sort of back bar push is a half push. So we're going to go 2-piece monster set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is going to be similar to my Templar setup. So this time, by doing a 5-piece here and another back barable 5-piece, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to open 2 5-piece sets that are back bar only, but both of the times we're going to have 4 on the front bar. And that way you're going to maintain the stats, for instance, of Wizard of Apostate for magical recovery on our back bar. Similar sets to that might be Burning Spellweave and maintain the crit on the front bar. You could have Alchemist, maintain the health, etc, etc. There's a lot of sets that do that. And that, again, opens the willpower. The final way to do this is a back bar setup where we are pushing to the front bar. So we may go 2-piece monster set, as per usual. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this time we're going on the front bar. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again on the front bar. Both are going to be front barred here. And that is going to open the back bar up for a 1-piece set, which in the case of my Mage DK would be a Master Ice Staff. So that's a good example of that. If you ever are confused about what I mean about these setups, the builds to go for are Templar for a half back push, the Mage DK Current for a front push, and the Mayhem Maker Mage DK build for a full back push. Those are sort of setups there. Then obviously my Mage Nightblade is going to be for a front bar, back bar. I very rarely run a generic setup. That is going to be for support sets. So a lot of the time that's to unlock an Ice Staff. Things like Elemental Drain, that sort of buff can be quite nice. It may also be for a bow and dual wield setup if you're running something with heal over time. 1-hand shield, 2-hander, that sort of stuff. But it's a bit more obnoxious to do that. So I generally advise against that where possible. I think 1-hand shield and 2-hander is going to be most common. The final setup we can go for in terms of arranging our gear is as follows. And this is the cheesy one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sort of full back bar push. But instead of going for a 2-piece monster set, we're also going to front bar push as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This leaves 3 pieces of armor. And what we're then going to do is with these back bar, front bar pushes, we're going to use the monster set as part of the push. Leave the jewelry open, and that leaves your availability for sets like endurance, agility, willpower, which are strong 3 pieces. And in the future, I'm sure there'll be other 3 pieces. So it's just another way to set up your gear. How you're going to set that up is all down to you. Decide the sets that suit you. I would always advise trying to push something back bar, front bar. It's always going to open more slots, unless your stamina, where you may consider that monster set, agility, 5-piece, and master bow, Maelstrom, or Asylum 2-hander. Because like master bow is pretty strong to have. Okay, that's in terms of your sets. So now we're going to work over our skill bar. So skill bar is nice and easy. When we look at our skill bar, there's your must-haves. Every single class has them. You'll know what they are if you're experienced enough with it. If not, watch a few build videos and get an idea. Every single class has must-have skills. Magic Nightblade, you're not going to play about Merciless Resolve. You're not going to play about Healwood. You're not going to play about Harness Magicka of some kind. And you're probably not going to play about Fear or Cripple. There's 5 skills instantly you can sacrifice onto your bar and build around. And then it's just going to come down to your playstyle. Again, it's exactly the same as your gear. Go for survivability first. Make sure you've got enough of that. Then sustain. Sources of sustain might include things like siphoning attacks, elemental drain, other sort of similar things. We've got Templar, you've got, God, what's the skill? Repentance, that sort of thing. There's a lot of options there available. I would then build for your damage, and damage is a bit more important with skills because you're going to have a burst combo. PvP, you are never in a month in Sundays going to get a kill unless you have burst. So you need to work out skills that can stack in the same game tick. I always advise at least 1 dot, obviously. If you can, 2 big dots. Magic Nightblade just kind of lacks that, but in our case we have one very sexy one. Something big hitting. So options here, Crystal Frag. What else you got? Power of the Light for Templar, Frag for Sorcerer or Overload for Sorcerer, DK, Stamina, Wrecking Blow. On Magicka, generally you got Flames of Oblivion and Whip kind of combining together. And then you need something that's a build-up damage where possible. And what I mean by build-up damage, again, is something like Curse, Power of the Light. On Stamina, there's loads of options like Blade Cloak. What a build-up damage is a skill you cast that's not necessarily a dot, but the damage is coming in after a delay. And what that means is you can time your main impact burst at the same time as that delay. The simplest possible example here is a Sorcerer, where you put Curse on your target, you put Fury on your target. Neither are doing damage straight away, really. But when you know they're going to explode, you launch your frag, bam, just as that curse is going off. And so rather than just taking frag damage, and they're going to heal, they're going to take frag, curse, fury in the same game tick, and that incoming damage is overwhelming. And that's how you're going to get kills. So that's how you want to build your skills. Last but not least, I think, is going to be your food, apart from CP, of course. The food is simple. Either, as a Magicka player, you're going to go for Tri-Food because you need stamina, or you're going to go for Clockwork City / Witch if you need sustain. Really, I would not fart about any other options. Don't go buy food. It's either Tri-Food or Recovery, Magicka, and Health. And then for stamina, exact same, Tri-Food or you're going Dubious Camera Phone. Really that simple. The reason you want to go that way is you just have to look, what do you need? Do I actually need that stamina Magicka? No. Good. Extra sustain. Do I need it? Yes. Something to note is that Tri-Food is slightly better overall stats compared to any current food in the game. That can vary a bit if you're a vamp and go with this Clockwork Citrus Fillet, because Clockwork Citrus Fillet gives you a bit of health recovery, which will add into your build. But generally speaking, if you can go Tri-Food, it is generally better, marginally on your stats. There are sets that will change that. So this is going to come down to a bit of experience knowing which food you're going to need. Easy enough. Vampire and Werewolf are pretty arguable. If you have a backbarable ulti and you're a stamina player, go for Werewolf. Very easy. If you have a backbarable ulti as Magicka, you can still go for Werewolf. I wouldn't advise it. You've probably got low stam sustain. If you've got that ulti slot open, you're either going to go for a defensive ultimate or you're going to go for something like Barrier for 10% extra regen from Alliance War passives, which I'll show now. So we go to support. Bam, Alliance War. This one here, increase your mag recovery. So it's a way of unlocking that. Vampire's a different choice. I'm going to advise against Vampire for almost every player. It is a lot of extra damage. You are going to notice the damage. It is not defensive. Times where it is worth considering. If you need extra regen and you can't find another source, you're going to go Vamp. If you're going to be on a Templar, I really like Vamp all the time. And Sork, I also generally like it on Magicka. If you're going to gank, it's really nice for stealth passives. And I think out of that, unless you're desperate for regen, you should avoid it. There are some players also like it on tankier targets. So this is going to come down to preference. If you're going to be really high resist, you're going to block a lot and that sort of thing in your playstyle. Again, customize these builds to your playstyle. I can't advertise that enough. If anyone asks about how do I decide my playstyle, just tag them this, for the love of God, in the chat. It really depends what your playstyle is. If you're going to build tanky, some people like it if they have a good size heal, get low, and it's a nice way to recover. The risk is that your initial incoming taken damage is going to obviously be higher, which is a pain in the arse. Final bit to discuss then is your CP. So you've done your sets, you've done your skills, you've done all of that stuff, you've just got to decide your CP. This is very easy because we can narrow these trees down a lot. Bashing focus. If you're going to run anything that might bash weave, pretty much everything stamina might and a one-hand shield might. Put a few points in there, not many. Sprinter, it's again worth putting a few points in, not many, unless you're a Stam Blade or a Stam Sork maybe. I might put a few in. Siphoner, honestly, It is good in sort of dual scenario, but if you're small scale, I wouldn't bother with it. Warlord, you want a lot of points in there. 32 at Mooncalf, 37, and this is the wrong chat. What am I on about? 32, 37, 52. Those sort of your nice scaling points in here for resources. It's going to come down to what you need. Tenacity is not bad. I would never stack healthy, so adjust those as you need. 33 and Befoul for me. Befoul is sexy, so if you're ever running a lot of heal debuffs, Reverb Bash, Jorok's Bane as a set, Incap, you want points in there. 33 is a sweet point for every single Befoul build in less dueling. Just remember that number because it puts you at 39% and it starts to scale a bit crapper after that. If you're in a dual build, through the roof. Stack it high as hell because it's going to be more important than your sustain. And then Tumbling, Shadow Ward, that's really going to come down to whether you're blocking or bashing much. Shade is a waste of points. Blue Tree, Blessed, you're never going to stack that too much, but a few in there is good. Balance your points through penetration, damage, and crit. Remember that pen and crit scale a lot better than Elemental Expert. Most builds, you're unlikely to go over 37, 42 in there. Those sort of numbers. Physical weapons, staff, I honestly wouldn't touch those in any build in terms of PvP unless it's very few points. It's alright, but generally you're not getting much burst from that. It does help you damage overall, but burst is a bit irrelevant. Master Arms, obviously if you're using direct damage, not dots, you're going to stack that high. Otherwise you're going to stack Thaumaturge high. Shattering Blows is nice to have some points in if you struggle against Sorks. Builds that are going to struggle against Sorks, Stamina Nightblade, Magic Nightblade, sometimes other Sorks. I think that any other stamp class should be fine. I think the Magicate is fine most of the time. I think the Magiteblar is fine, so I don't put too many there otherwise. And then this really comes down to the same sort of equivalent for physical instead of spell and Thaumaturge we've already discussed. Final bits to mention here are obviously some important passives. I'm going to sort of scroll through and mention any that are nice. This one's not bad. Next cost of your ability is free after 80%. So if you like 74 points in there, put it to 75. It's always worth it. Crit is really nice. That's a really strong passive. So 30 in there is sexy as hell. That's not really that important. It's okay, but not that good. Repose Day is really good if you're going to block a lot. That adds up very high in damage. Tactician used to be nice for off-balance builds. Probably not that important anymore unless you're using Truth. Then that's a great passive to know about. Butcher sucks unless you're a werewolf. That one's not that important. Opportunist is okay if you're physical. It's pretty good to get, but you're probably going to get it anyway. Same as Precise. This one's really good for DKs. If you can get it, it's nice to have. Last Stand. An Exploiter, I actually would suggest avoiding. It's a big investment for what you're getting. Though obviously if you're physical, you're already going to be getting points in it, so you're probably going to unlock it accidentally. Red Tree is a lot easier. So Red Tree, we've got Crit Resist. Spell Resist you're not going to touch. Medium Armor you're not going to touch. You're going to touch Crit Resist and Direct. And really important passive in almost every build is Resilient. If you can get that, get it. It is really important because a lot of damage is crit. It's got no cooldown. It really adds up that healing. It's only 100 each time, but if you think how much stuff is critting you in a long fight, that adds up quickly. This one's crap. Don't worry about reaching that. When you roll dodge, this one's pretty crap. And that one's not particularly good either, so I won't worry about those. Again, don't touch light armor in terms of PvP. You want to balance these out. This is a setup that I use on almost everything. 37, 32, 40. If in doubt, if you don't know what to do in this tree, do that, unless you're stamina, because you're going to want Unchained. That's a nice passive to save yourself some stamina. Crit damage is not very important on that one. This one's really good, Bulwark, but you're probably going to get that all the time, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And this one's not very relevant. 44 in Bastion. I would rarely touch Expert Defender. It can add up in long fights, and if you're going to be some build that's taking a lot of incoming damage regularly, it's great to have, but it's not that important. Quick Recovery Healing is great. Heavy, again, I wouldn't put points there. What else have we got here? When you're resurrecting and pay, your damage taken is reduced. Doesn't really matter. That's rezzing. That's rezzing. When you recover, that's rezzing. And yeah, none of those are too relevant, so I wouldn't worry about those passives. The green, almost all of these passives suck. I'm not even going to go over them. There might be some that are okay, but for the most part, they're a bit rubbish. We are... Oh, we've already discussed these, I think. We have. Good. All right, that makes it easy. The passives are not worth discussing. So I think I have covered everything. I know that's a lot of detail to take in, but my suggestion is to work through that logic. The biggest tip, if you don't take anything else from this video, is survivability, then sustain, then damage. Once you've got your build together, take it into an environment where it's not too busy. Don't run in a group, you're going to learn nothing. Don't necessarily duel. Most people are going to run customized dual builds. It's not really a sort of skill fest. It's more of a build v build. You want to find a friend who's a good player running an open world build. Battlegrounds is a good way to testing. If you really have to, Jaws is probably going to be your next best, but I'd advise against it. And see what you're lacking. If you're running out of resources, add more sustain. If your survivability sucks, stamina, more weapon damage is good. More stamina is good. That gives you extra healing. Magicka, less spell damage and more Magicka. So sacrifice spell damage for Magicka. It's going to increase your shields. And if you can't get survivability through any of those means, sets like Wizard of Post-Day, resistance sets, Bloodspawn, Pirate Skeleton, healing sets, those sort of things are going to help you there. And also you obviously have more heal over times, which will also make you tankier. Someone did mention I did not cover Boon and Glyph. Boon is really going to come down to what you need. Glyphs, I do need to cover still on the armor. I did talk about jewelry. So in terms of glyphs, stamina, you're very rarely going to run reduced cost. I would pretty much always run recovery if you're going to run recovery or weapon damage. Those you go to on your jewelry. I wouldn't touch anything else. Sometimes magic recovery can be important, and if you can't get anyone else, it might be worth running a glyph there. But yeah. In Magicka, different story. The only class I would never run at least one reduced cost glyph is Templar, because I didn't really feel it worked very well there. Every other Magicka class, I can't advise enough running at least one reduced cost glyph. If you are casting skills regularly, it's a huge resource save to run at least one. Even if you're all light, it really saves you resources. If you're heavy, I think realistically you should have two, but sometimes you can get away with less. Armor, however, is different. So armor, there's a lot of customization. You've got two go-tos, flat stamina or Magicka, or tri-stat. Don't, for the love of God, touch health. It's a waste of time, because you're always going to get more stats by going for triglyphs. Tying into this glyph, by the way, when you make the class, never spread your points between stamina and Magicka unless you're making some weird hybrid. Stack them into one of the two, because triglyphs will give you the balance of the others. Stack it high, and then look at what you need. If you can sacrifice the stats, tri-stats, it gives you a lot more overall stats. The health bonus is free, and the stamina and Magicka balance out. It really comes down to what you need, so I can't honestly give you an answer as to what glyphs best suit you, but look at that. Something else I forgot to mention is traits. So although there's a large trait pool, we can narrow that down very quickly. Weapons, you've got three sort of go-tos. Infused, Nern, and Decisive. Most of the time, you're looking at Nern and Infused. Sharpened if you're dueled as well. So in dueled Magicka, I would always run main hand Nern, backhand Sharpened. If you're running it as your main DPS bar, most of the time, Nern Honed is better if you have heal over times, and Infused is better if you don't. And if you're running any support bar, I really can't suggest enough to run this glyph here with Infused. Infused and Magicka Steel or Stamina Steel. That's the name of the glyph. It's a very, very nice one. Makes a huge difference in survivability. It's going to come down to you there, but armor is a lot easier. Sort of go-to traits are well-fitted, sturdy, and in-pen. Wouldn't touch anything else in PvP. I can't remember the last time I did. Unless you're ganking, then it's Divine's Infused. But that's going to come down to balance. If you're lacking Stamina Sustain, you want to go into sturdy and well-fitted, depending whether you block or dodge more. Wouldn't ever really run more than sort of 4 or 5 of those, and then everything else in pen. Just keep in mind that you can get all that stuff from CP as well, so find the perfect balance. I think I've covered everything. If I did miss any important topics that really have got you confused, feel free to ask in the description. I will do my best to help. I can't promise I can solve it for you in the end. This is a lesson to teach you how to make a build. For some people, you may not be experienced enough to understand some of the things I've said. For other people, you may want some advice. Feel free to ask, guys. The only thing I can't really answer is, should I try this build? I can't know that. It's for you to try. This is to help you learn how to do it. I will still Theorycraft builds for you guys. It's just to give you that option of learning your own playstyle and adapting to it. Good luck with it, everyone. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, that's that done. How would you adjust